And welcome to Candidates Corner on LPTV, a production of the Libertarian Party and Libertarian National Committee. Joe Bishop, Henchman Chairman. Tonight, as always, John Gapso on the big board. And I'm your host, Pat Ford, proud chair of the Libertarian Party of Rhode Island. As we say every week, there are a few purposes for the show. We want to give the libertarian community an opportunity to meet our wonderful down-ballot candidates. We challenge those candidates to incorporate what we call lunch pail voter issues into a libertarian perspective, to deliver to the voters the issues that they truly care about. And as always, after a week like this, it's important to create a bond, a recognition between individual affiliates, so that we come to realize that the candidate who's running, say, for town council in Lincoln, Nebraska, is as fundamental and important to the philosophy and the future of the Libertarian Party and the Libertarian movement, I'd say a candidate in Maine or their hometown candidate in Florida. Someone in California help create a groundswell of support that can be felt around the country. So let's get right to it. Joining us tonight for the very first time, of course, is Trevor Reilly. He is running for
Lincoln City Council.
Yep. For the great, now there's something, what do they call them? Cornhuskers or something out there?
Yeah, it's Nebraska, home of the Nebraska Cornhuskers.
What is this?
Nebraska at Lincoln.
What is this Cornhusker thing? What are they talking about?
What are you talking about with husking corn, or usually kicking butt at football?
What is a Cornhusker?
A Cornhusker is I actually grew up in Omaha, so I was one of the few urbanites that we have. But a Cornhusker is somebody who goes out and usually hand shucks and takes corn off the stalk. Working in ag is a huge part of what we have in Nebraska. Mm-hmm. And it's a really beautiful part because, you do have so many different productions of corn. And I think we used to be more of a grain area than we are now. But just the industry of like farming is huge in Nebraska. But then you have these two urban areas, Omaha, where I grew up, and Lincoln, where I live now. And there's a lot of different activity there, but you still see a lot of ag involvement and everything going on.
Now, you come referred to us by one of the highest sources, if you will, in the libertarian movement. Of course, we're talking about that great libertarian Laura Ebke out of Nebraska. You part of your early genesis, if you will, as a libertarian was working right alongside of Laura. Tell us how you became that libertarian, how you got to know Laura, and what type of work you've done with her.
So I got to actually meet Laura on election night in 2016. And that was a very different experience for all of us because 2015 was when I started having my wake up moment. Basically, I basically like really came through because I came back to Nebraska out of the Marine Corps in 2015. And I really had like this anti-war sentiment that was starting to get awakened within me. And I hit the Libertarian Party and I saw a lot of what other good voice leaders were saying. And the anti-war sentiment just like woke me up. And so it basically become like a downhill trend of all these other things that I see where government just gets really heavy-handed. And Laura was probably one of the best examples with Senator Ebke at the time. She was the best example with that because she really pursued hard on licensure. And she really got through some really aggressive reform to make government look at what it does. And just working in her office was a huge experience, but I definitely got some more experience in government working in the legislature for another year after that.
We have so many, by my standards, young libertarians who are veterans.
Oh, yeah.
It's become an incredibly powerful part of our movement for a couple of reasons. Most importantly, you're talking to a select group of young men and women who have literally put their life on the line for this nation. And we often talk in the libertarian movement of the way to show the greatest respect to said young men or women, whether they be veterans or current members of the military, is to, in fact, to ensure that they no longer engage in foreign adventures, that in fact their service is limited to the defense of the nation. When people say that to you, or and I'm going to get a little personal here, when they thank you for their service, how does that speak to you, particularly as someone who's a veteran of the United States Marine Corps?
So I really do kind of I dislike the term "thank you for your service" because it has become a platitude. When we realize that we've spent 20 years in war in Afghanistan, and I participated in just a small part of that war, it's almost offensive because, when the veteran realizes, like, dude, I didn't really do anything for the service of this country. It was just part of an oligarchy. Like, I was in country joking about, oh man, I wish I invested in HESCO 10 years ago. Ha ha ha. But then you realize, like, oh yeah, HESCO, these military contractors make a lot of money just on barriers. Their stock value has just shot on up. And it on the other side, though, you have the people who really appreciate having the peace and security that they, I would say, used to have in their lives. Definitely in the past 4 years, even more, there's a lot more arguments about how that liberty has really been infringed. But people are starting to realize, like, yeah, government is being a behemoth, but they still want to say thank you for doing something I didn't do. So there's emotion behind it, and a lot of people out here in Nebraska are really well intentioned. It gets lost in political debate because people become so tribalistic, but everybody really is well-intentioned. You can knock on anybody's door in Nebraska, and if they answer, they'll probably give you at least 30 seconds of your time. They'll look you in your eye, and they might ask you an honest question. And I've done political campaigning in some other places, and I've seen where a lot of partisanship comes out. So I think Nebraska is very unique in that, and that's why I am trying to advertise myself as Lincoln's third voice, because you get 3 votes, and basically people should choose this, so try to use this like ranked choice voting. There's plenty of candidates that fall along that party line, but I think only one person has really spoken up on a lot of these issues that people have only said yes on. And, I've got receipts for, going to the city council and speaking out against adding vaping to the Clean Indoor Air Act. And it was based on a whole bunch of misinformation, which I call out, and yet everybody votes yes for it. And when people realize, like, yeah, even though there's these little issues that don't affect me, I should still realize that there's another voice to be heard, and there's another voice to actually speak out against these tiny little things that have taken away from all this other liberty. And so I really do appreciate the liberty I have. So thank you for doing something that I feel is what you're supposed to be defending my liberty for. But that's not where it's at. It's here at the local level. It's this giant behemoth of government that just keeps on growing before our eyes.
Now, let's talk about Lincoln. Now, you're part of, I guess, something called Lincoln Lancaster, the greater Lincoln Lancaster County area. What form of government, if you will, from the top down in the state, is it Nebraska that's got the only unicameral? Or am I one of those guys that gets them all mixed up out there?
No, you're 100% correct. Nebraska has a unicameral, which is just a one-house legislature with 49 state senators. And it's a very unique system. It's supposedly nonpartisan, but there still is partisanship that comes through, and that's still going to be everywhere because it's government. That's what politics is: people vying for control of your lives. And it's pretty unique, and that's what I think. What a lot of Nebraska's pioneer spirit still captures, that we still have this very unique system. Mm-hmm. And the party that we have is actually the Lancaster County Libertarian Party. You can actually follow us on Facebook at Lancaster County LP. And my Facebook page is Trevor Reilly for Lincoln City Council. But you can just follow this link right here at Reilly for Lincoln. It'll bring you right up. It's a lot shorter. It's Reilly like the auto parts store.
There you go. So you go from the Senate then down to is the county government important in terms of day-to-day life for Nebraskans?
The county commissioners do have some effect in what goes on in the city, but right now the big debate has been the way that the Lincoln Lancaster County Health Department is ran by the Lincoln mayor. And so the Lincoln mayor essentially gets to appoint them, and then they're confirmed by the city council. And this last county health department lady, she basically was appointed as an interim health director, and then she just got the job. There was no other applicants. There was no robust, transparent process of looking for another health director. She was just interim appointed, and then she was confirmed by the city council. And I think it was a huge shame because she has really kind of been anti-science. I think that we knew a lot of information back in May, back in June, and yet I think there was no excuse. There was no proof for government to infringe a lot of these mandates that they did. The way that they shut down playgrounds when we knew earlier on that it was aerosolized and not so much contact-based, they did that almost the entire summer here in Lincoln. And I think it's extremely gross the way that the city council just okayed it. And they really didn't fight that hard on actually taking back the city, because we do have a strong mayor form of government. And maybe we should look at putting that power a little bit more equally distributed between the city council and the mayor.
Absolutely. And so then going down to the city level, this is a quote unquote normal election, or is this a special election that you're taking?
It's a normal election. Yep. So it's really weird because it switches every 2 years. You have 4 city council wards just around the city, and then you have 3 at-large spots. And so the at-large spots go every 4 years, and the ward spots go every 4 years. It's just on a 2-year difference. So this year it's the at-large spots, and then in 2 years it'll be the wards.
Excellent. What issues are resonating right now with Lincoln voters? And I guess part of the challenge is as this show has evolved. When we first started the show, we were pre-COVID. Then we were in literally the depths of the bowels, if you will, the crisis. Now we're in this sort of other world, this transitional period. I can remember when Nebraska went through its peak COVID. Where do things stand right now? And are citizens starting to look beyond COVID in terms of issues regarding the state, or is that still really the elephant in the room?
I think there was a 2-part question there about what are like the major issues and then the COVID issues. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay. So the 2 major issues, I would say right now, I'll flip-flop between conservatives and Democrats right now, or really the active progressives in the city, because Democrats are kind of mealy-mouthed on this stuff, but the conservatives in the city are really concerned about the way that the city budget is being spent. They're really concerned about their taxes, because even though the city council was very happy that they did not increase any of the levies in this recent meeting, valuations still went up throughout the county. And so people are still paying more in taxes, but the city council was tooting its own horn as they said, oh, let's not increase the levy. There is a budget shortfall, partially because of the government reactions to coronavirus. But it's all budget stuff, and the conservatives are really concerned about that, and it makes sense. I have the city budget in a little binder that I've been studying, and one of the things that we need to look at is the way that city parking is done, because the city has redone this really this area down by the train tracks, call it the Haymarket, and it's got these great parking garages, got a lot of really great businesses. It's pretty cool, but it was all built using TIF funding. Right. And right now we have these parking garages, and the Lincoln City spends on parking about $13 million, but then it makes up in revenue about $14 million. So it's only a $1 million gap that is actually going to the funds of the city. So that is one thing that obviously needs to be examined. Like, there's little parts of the budget, there's nickels and dimes everywhere that need to be saved. And that's the thing where I'm really going to nail it with conservative voters. With progressive or really progressive voters, it's Black Lives Matter and affordable housing. And Black Lives Matter, I support a lot of the points. You actually look at the organization website back in like 2015 or 2016 when the organization started up, they had some pretty different points on the website. But what the community is focused on is police brutality. And obviously getting rid of marijuana possession and marijuana paraphernalia, that's one huge thing that's going to take police off the backs of young people. And obviously we have a huge university here, so that's probably where a lot of things pop up. Obviously, we don't want kids engaging in underage drinking, but at least bringing it to the light makes it a lot easier to deal with addiction or other, disturbance or like violence issues. Right. And so that's one thing. And then the last thing is affordable housing, where right now there is a housing shortage, like a massive shortage of like affordable housing. And really that has to be fixed with correcting zoning, really removing some of the height restrictions that we have, and then some of the minimum lot development requirements where you have to have like a minimum of 600 square feet or something. Or actually, I think it's a larger minimum of like 800 right now. Right.
You mentioned one of my magic words, and that's TIF financing. What? And this is where I hiss and throw holy water out, and they tell you that I'm not a fan. Talk to folks about what you know about TIF financing and for communities, and what your thoughts are.
Well, I have the page right here somewhere, but basically TIF is really only supposed to be used for redevelopment. It's only really supposed to be used for areas that need it, that are going to be local community, stuff like that. Stuff that like really the projects need it and it's justifiable. It has to have other designations on it, which, I rely on the book for that. But it's got tight parameters. So you have to follow those tight parameters. And, we've already done this stuff with the Haymarket. It's already built. I'm not going to try to tear it down because it's already there. but I'm going to make sure that we keep the TIF funding percentage below a certain amount of the total city value. And, with a city that's worth multi-millions dollars, I think actually we're actually probably in the billions of dollars. I think it might be. But when you have such a huge value, you have to make sure that you actually have your budget in line. So we should look at keeping that TIF funding below 2%, maybe below 1%, but let's get it to 2 first. I'm all about incrementalism. So let's at least get it under 2. Hell, if the city council just wants to say 2.25, let's do that. But let's see a progress towards it, because that will get our budget and the property taxes more in order.
One of my frustrations with TIF financing is that it's typically, purportedly, allegedly, dedicated towards quote unquote blighted areas.
Mm-hmm.
And then the sales tax collection that is statutorily in place to finance and ultimately pay off the debt for whatever that capital project was is in fact supposed to be based on a finite geographical area. And I call it TIF creep, because ultimately all we end up doing is taking, in order to, if you will, pay homage to vested interests who are looking, they constantly looking to build things because it's politically, it's great stuff for them. They get all sorts of contributions.
You're 100% correct. There's already extra projects going on to the TIF funding that's going on with the Haymarket. So you are 100% correct. That does happen, I guess. I'm new enough in the movement. I still haven't learned everything. So that is something new that I definitely learned. And I'm here. I'm learning for the city council. I'll learn even more.
No. Hey, I just wanted to take a break in the action here.
Oh yeah.
Kudos to you for being familiar already with these type of arcane financing techniques, because ultimately, as big government has gotten beaten back a little bit on the big projects, stadiums, these massive construction projects, which typically were voted for and, if you will, promoted on a standalone basis. Now you find a lot of these type projects being buried in what we call in the Northeast is the making of the sausage, which means it's buried in a lot of
sausage made.
Yep, it's buried in the budgets.
And the budget actually isn't even like totally transparent. Like you get like one page where it says like the sources and stuff like that. And when you actually go to like the operation and maintenance, you don't actually see all the incomings of where the revenue comes from. You don't get to see all that stuff. It's very, very just line item.
Right. And here's the line you're going to hear a lot if you haven't heard it already. Well, okay. The project pays for itself. Well, that sounds great. Explain, how does that work? Well, we take sales tax revenue from the dedicated area and use that to pay off the debt service. Oh, okay. So me and my buddy, we're going to be starting a business on the other end of town. Can we use our sales tax and just hold on to it ourselves that we collect and pay for our debt service? Oh, no, you can't do that. That's a misappropriation of governmental funds. But that's it. But no, that project pays for itself. And what you literally have, dear readers, is a situation where you've got tax subsidies effectively taking place by folks outside of those districts, because very often they don't meet the budget. So you literally have the prospect of an economic quote unquote development, or as they say now, the other word is investment. You're making an investment in the community. Well, that investment in the community serves a private interest, and that private interest is literally competing with for if you will, for the consumer dollar with other businesses in town who, by the way, simultaneously are subsidizing their competition. It's nuts, but it happens every day, particularly in mid-sized cities like Lincoln.
Nonpartisan.
It's just terribler and terribler.
Oh, and you're 100% right, because there is a special interest project right now, and it's called the Pershing Center renovation. And so the city council is about to approve this TIF project for this old event center that used to be classified as like a medium-sized event center where it would hold about that 4,000 to 5,000 people or something like that. And they're about to demolish this entire thing. And you should look at the building, like the Pershing Center in Lincoln. It's got a beautiful mosaic on the front of it. It's a really cool building. They haven't used it. I mean, yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, it's a very cool building. But what they're going to do is they're going to demolish this thing and then make a bunch of like affordable housing apartments. We're not starving for apartments. It's just a special interest project. Right. And also like make an excuse for a community center and also another library. It's going to be like a multi-use housing project. It's a huge pie in the sky dream, because you have no idea what the quotes are going to be for concrete right now. Every single project that's going on right now with the hotels, concrete prices and lumber prices are going up like crazy. So we're going to TIF out this special interest project, and then it may take forever, or it's just going to suck up all these resources that like local business owners could use to expand, or homeowners could use to improve their homes. It's still going to take away from all the lumber prices and the concrete that we have available. And so I just think that like for all the resources that this thing is going to take in, it is not going to be worth what we get out of it. People are not going to look at this thing and say, yeah, I really got this value out of it because the government's ultimately spending my money or taking more from me to pay for this.
Right.
And it's not going to be housing that people own. It's going to be apartments that you just sit there and rent.
Highly depreciative public housing, which doesn't promote equity in the community on either the philosophical sense or the financial sense. And simultaneously, most of these cities are also providing similar incentives to luxury housing, and then essentially diverting free market demands away from, say, middle income or low income housing that is ownable, and effectively creating a glut in the market for luxury housing, which is infinitely more profitable. It's magic, and it's your government at work. And there's a whole lot of people who make a whole lot of do-re-mi off it. But in the meantime, the regular citizens are worried about educating their children. What are the schools like in Lincoln? Talk to us.
So I worked in the legislature under Senator Mike Groney of Lincoln County. Mm-hmm. And the guy was chair of the education committee for a few years. And one of the big problems in Nebraska is TIOSA. This guy, he did his best to try to rework the TIOSA formula. But I think this is something Jacob Hornberger was really right about, is that you can't fix something that's fundamentally wrong by reforming it. You just have to abolish it. Right. And so when we looked at this TIOSA formula, it was such a bad behemoth. It was just such a multi-calculated thing that basically took in the schools that had enough population density for the schools, or the districts and like the cities, stuff like that. They got state equalized funding. So the state basically put more money into the schools. The rural schools that didn't have enough of that density to get equalized funding basically just had to rely on property taxes. So the school levies would be jacked up. You'd have school administrators being like the top 1% of the district because they get these huge salaries. And right now, school funding in Nebraska is trying to be fixed by Senator Lou Ann Linehan. And she's trying to basically use the Corey DeAngelis solution of you have the money follow the students, not the institutions. There are people in Lincoln who really love the public schools, and I have a lot more love for the public school teachers, and they don't quite see that they can actually benefit from A, staying in the public schools and having lower class sizes, or B, moving on to a private institution where you actually get paid more and you still have a lower class size. So it's a win-win for the teachers, but the union has such strong influence here. The State Education Association has such strong influence here. It's just that they're kind of blinded with it. And this is so bad that while farmers are having to sell off their land and like they're really suffering to pay off their schools, you have financiers in the public education system here saying that there's a property wealth disparity, which is why rural schools aren't hurting. And it's a really gross part of the debate, but I think that the only way that schools can be improved here in Lincoln is by allowing school choice. And so, I mean, that's obviously a state issue. But obviously I think that the teachers would like me because they understand I understand what their problems are. And the problems are with the system, but the system is really trying to like safeguard their interests, supposedly. So they're just kind of loyal to it. And especially because here in Lincoln, there is so much government influence that all the institutions of government are a little bit stronger. Right.
Let's talk economics. What are the industries in Lincoln that really drive the economy?
So there is the university gets a lot of state funding. Otherwise, I mean, there's plenty of private businesses here. We have actually this institution called Huddle, which basically is like one of the first things of its kind where they actually just provide really hyper-analyzed sports statistics and like sports analytics. So there's a lot of really cool tech firms out here. I mean, obviously Nebraska has Facebook and Google servers up in Omaha, Bellevue area. So it's called the Silicon Prairie. But we have a lot of great construction firms out here. We have Lincoln Industries, which is one of the largest metal fabricators in the United States. And I mean, there's just a lot. I mean, about the same of what you'd see in any city. But because we are just about that like 250,000 population range, it's really perfect for a small business climate. And that's one of the greatest things, is that we do have a small business association. It's called Lincoln. It's called LIBA, Lincoln Independent Business Association. They're a great organization that really goes to bat for the local businesses here. They have a really great policy advisor that I've seen testify at the city council, and they're just really looking out for the interest of small business. And they got like at least 2,000 members, and it's just a really great organization that really pushes for the small business here. I know there's plenty of other small business owners, but yeah, it's just a good old like American town, pretty much. Like, I mean, as far as towns get right now, like, it's pretty nice.
Excellent. Excellent. So, folks, by the way, if you're just joining us, you're Trevor Reilly. He's running for city council, I should really say, for the town or city of Lincoln, Nebraska.
It's the city of Lincoln. See, I grew up in Omaha, which is larger. So obviously, when I came here, it just felt a little bit tinier, but not that much.
There you go. Well, he's running for city council. And of course, he became initially familiar with the Libertarian Party, both through the anti-war movement as well as working very closely with Laura Ebke, that Nebraskan libertarian. Let's talk about the campaign now.
Yeah.
You clearly are hyper involved in the Nebraskan political community. You're well known to the community in that sense. What other ways have you been involved with the community in sort of establishing yourself as a city leader, particularly as a young person?
Really providing the kind of that radical difference that a lot of people have been hoping for. From the Bernie Bros to, the Gary Johnson people who just kind of got awakened to libertarianism through the Johnson campaign, even to the Ron Paul people. And, even one of the ladies, one of the other people I'm running against, she actually really likes Ronald Reagan. It's like, yeah, sure, there's some stuff we can take from there too. Not everything, but a little bit. And so really, as a young person, I'm really hoping to, at least, if I have to disagree with you, I can do it without being disagreeable. And I think we do have city council people who obviously go to bat with that. I've obviously followed Kara Schultz and Trisha Butler, and then Ben Backus with their city council activism and stuff like that. And they're pioneers, undeniably. And so, I've watched a lot of people. I've taken in a lot of the best information that I can, and obviously I'm still learning a lot. But I think that what people are looking for is they're looking for an anti-political candidate, and you get 3 votes. So why not use one on at least voting for an anti-political candidate, for somebody who's at least going to admit, if they are a leader, they're a smart enough leader not to try to control your life.
So you are all at large in terms of your candidacies. Is that correct?
Yep. So it's citywide race.
Right. So you've got to cover a lot of different turf. Has there been an opportunity for any debates? And how is the media market in terms of giving you some opportunity there?
So my candidacy is also a little bit unique because I did make a promise to my lady that I would not formally try to run until I had graduated school. And so I recently graduated Bellevue University, and, I'd collected signatures, but I did get a little bit late in the game, but I still made it to all the panels. I filled out all the candidate questionnaires that I could. I think there was just one unique one from a different organization I hadn't heard about. I just didn't get that one done. But otherwise, it's just it's been a really big learning experience. And so I have tried to talk to people. I've gone down to the usual areas that I've been in, and I've gone out and explored other areas of Lincoln. And, obviously with the pandemic, it is easy to be respectful and not knock on people's doors, but there has been a little bit of door knocking, and you just stand back, and if people want to come out, they'll come out. But I've pretty much just engaged with people that I do know and sought out some of the areas that I don't. But I've made it also a panel. It's just been panels. It's hard to get an answer on a policy in 60 seconds, and that's what most of the panels have been.
Right. What is the voting status when you've got a major, and I mean a major university in your hometown? Are those folks voting in any great size? Are they from all over Nebraska? And of course, you've got a national and international component with a school like Nebraska, clearly. And what was that guy's name? Osborne? Yeah.
Tom Osborne. Yeah.
Is he still hanging around, by the way?
Yeah, he usually just kind of speaks up against gambling and smoking pot.
Okay. So he's not running as a libertarian anytime soon.
No, not anytime soon.
Fair enough. But what do you get a significant voter base in the university community there?
When you talk to them and you can get them to sign up and re-register. Otherwise, if I was to say accurately, maybe about 50 to 60% actually just stay registered with their home of record, which is usually the easiest for them. But I mean, obviously, the university still has influence because it has a large employment of different professors, and yeah, you do see some difference between the STEM community and some of the other liberal college majors. But otherwise, Lincoln is pretty diverse still because you have a lot of people who work in trades, you have plenty of people who own their own business, and you have plenty of people who work in tech or industry or just government. And that's another part, is that we have a lot of government here because we have the state capitol, we got a lot of state buildings. And so you do get a lot of government employees. But I think that you do see a lot of, you do see some range in between the Republican and Democrat employees that you get. But otherwise, Lincoln is home to plenty of diverse views. I think also we have one of the largest Yazidi communities here in Lincoln. I mean, there's plenty of different people. I mean, I know a couple different Colombians or Ecuadorians here as well. So it's just, you get plenty of diversity.
The what's it going to take in terms of the win, in terms of the number? What type of voter turnout do you have to get? And have you been able to establish any sort of get out the vote effort either through yourself or with the local Libertarian Party?
Yeah, so actually I do have some really great libertarians that have helped me knock doors and helped me drop literature. And we think that really just making contact, dropping lit, and at least trying to put that information on people's hands is probably one of the best ways to at least get them to consider your name. So we've been doing a couple lit drops, and I really am thankful for the team that I have. Otherwise, it's been pretty much Facebook. I've been trying to use, obviously, the forums and everything else. But my win number, we expected a little bit less than actually. We got like 30,000 mail-in votes. And so I don't think it's still actually going to be more than a 50% turnout. But we'll still probably, I don't know the actual number, but the percentage of votes that I'll need is probably going to be about 15% to actually win. Because there is 12 candidates total. And since the top 6 move on, there's going to be a lot of different votes where maybe somebody only votes for 2 candidates. But polling in Nebraska is always unreliable. So we've just kind of done what we can to figure it out.
What is this first runoff date, and when is the final election?
April 6th is Tuesday. April 6th is basically the primary, and then the general election is May 4th, Star Wars Day.
Wow! So you have you've got quite a compacted schedule coming up.
Oh yeah, and I'm going to do what I can to drop the rest of the lit that I have this weekend. And I just got some signs placed out earlier today. It was a beautiful day to place signs, so I had a good time driving all around Lincoln. But I'll be putting out some more tomorrow, and yeah, just doing the last push that I can.
Excellent. If you had the voters in Lincoln in front of you right now, let's just say we turn the switch. And by the way, I did share this with a couple of Nebraska political organizations, so there may very well be some people who watch you either today or the beauty of this show, by the way, is it lives in perpetuity, if you will, on our Facebook page. And it will be up as one of the primary shows for the next few days. What would you say to them? What would be your combination of both stump speech and the night before the election speech?
If I was to have everybody's attention for 30 seconds, yep, I would tell them there is nothing wrong with these people, but you get 3 votes, and I can tell you that all these other people will probably agree on something that you should care about, but you never will. But you will care about it when it comes to the actual time that you got to pay for it or it starts to affect you. And so I'm going to be your third voice, your conscience, not the left shoulder angel, the right shoulder devil. I'm going to be that third voice that says, you know what? No, we should not do this. This should not happen to this person. You should not take that away. I'm going to be that third voice to say no. And government needs that.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Government is singularly lacking in an adult in the room who will simply say, let's reconsider that. No, you don't need that after all. No, that's outstanding. That's absolutely outstanding. What have you got lined up for election day? Any last minute? You gonna stay up all night and hit people with the trains first thing in the morning, or at the local McDonald's, or what? I will be going out to McKinney's in the Haymarket to watch the election numbers roll in with my fellow libertarians. Excellent. Yep. A good friend of mine, an associate, Christopher Thrasher, I believe, is out there at Creighton. So,
oh, nice. Yeah.
I don't know how far that is away, or again, it's
about 45 minutes.
I'm one of those East Coast types. So I've sadly, I've spent a fair amount of time in North Dakota. I have yet to visit Nebraska.
Come on down this summer, or maybe in the fall. We'll have Husker football.
Oh boy, no, that actually sounds outstanding. Well, listen, again, let's engage in some shameless self promotion. Tell folks how they can support you. Now, the first election is imminent. The die is largely cast for that one, but what we hope will happen is that you'll be given another month, another lease on life, for another month to run.
We'll see.
And whether or not folks want to volunteer, I don't know if you're going to be doing any mobile texting, any phone calling. How can folks reach out to you? How can they support your campaign?
So literally you can either reach out to me at my email, which is the same as this little tag right here, Reilly4Lincoln. It's Reilly4Lincoln@gmail is going to be my email, or just use that link on Facebook and you can go right to my page. You can ask me any questions. I haven't really tried to run that much fundraising. I'm really grateful for the donations that I've had that have enabled me to get literature and get signs. But otherwise, if I hit May, yeah, you can basically follow the page and I'll send you a link where you can where you can send donations.
Right.
But otherwise, it's really just hitting the streets. And honestly, what I want the most for my campaign to be is for people to realize that we do need more libertarians running. And I've seen other libertarians running here in Lincoln, and they have been part of what inspired me. So I want at least 2 or 3 more to follow me. And I think that we have the potential for it. I think Lincoln is growing, and Nebraska is going to be a very bold place where we actually start introducing some liberty.
Excellent. Well, of course, obviously, our thoughts, our hearts, everything is with you 100%. One of the aspects of this show that has really evolved in the last few months is the sheer number of young people running for political office. You're doing it the right way by starting out really sort of at the ground floor. And by the way, city councilship, as it's been done by someone like Kara Burns, is an excellent way to introduce people in your community to the libertarian movement. And you will probably, quite frankly, have more impact on their lives, have more responsibility, and more examples of stewardship. We don't use a G word here. That governed word is not welcome here. We steward community resources. That's what I like to say. You will have that impact on people. It's a lot of responsibility because, Laura's been there before you. But for a lot of people, you will be the very first libertarian that will ever, in effect, serve in government alongside of them. And so how you conduct yourself, your explanation of the philosophy, you nailed it with that sort of planting the seed. We call it the Larry Sharp philosophy here.
Oh, yeah.
Plant that seed. You don't argue.
He's a great libertarian.
Right. You don't try to win. You simply introduce the concept and develop an intellectual curiosity and develop, if you will, a desire to discuss in further detail. And it sounds like you're doing all of that. So nothing but the best this week. And please reach out and let us know how, how it goes and, what your next steps are.
Absolutely. And I think actually the next steps after this will probably be looking at boards and commissions, and probably encouraging other libertarians to do that. So little parts up, I think, if I lose this, or, I would like to win. I would like to at least get some real victories, even if they're slightly incremental. I'd like to get them across the finish line. I'm kind of tired of testifying, but we'll see what happens.
Well, certainly, we had Steve Sheets and we had a couple of folks from Pennsylvania on over the last several weeks to talk about what they call the Moulton maneuver out there, where they loaded up on boards and auditorships and councils and and school boards and got a whole lot of libertarians involved. So it's a great next step, and certainly there's going to be opportunities for training for Kara and other folks in Apollo, and there's certainly going to be opportunities to keep moving that football. So
I would like to say the only comment I have to add on that is that it's a shame, though, is that so many small business owners aren't usually able to do that because they're so focused on their small business. But it is cool when you see it happen, and that's what one of our independent candidates, Alina Newman, I'll go ahead and just name drop her. She is a small business owner, and she's running for city council, and she does seem fairly competent. So hopefully if I don't make it, she does.
Well, it's an interesting challenge because on some local programming that I did just before going live here, I had 2 business owners on, restaurant owners, who came up with a rather interesting alternative to straight unemployment to encourage people to incentivize people to move back into the workforce off of this overreaching federal unemployment. And let me tell you, as someone who's worked a lot of years, I get the temptation to just take a few months off and cash a check. Boy, I mean, the statist in me is real, I guess. But ultimately, business owners face two challenges. Say you're a libertarian, say you're a Republican, say you're you've got to sell to everybody, and that's one of the biggest challenges. And politics are so divisive now that a lot of folks are afraid of doing that. What I'd like to see happen, to your point, and it's a great one, is that business owners get more involved, not so much in the partisan political side, but interject themselves like these gentlemen did into the solutions conversation, which is to say, I have an economic stake in this community. I've got a real investment in the community. I'm a stakeholder, and everything you do is going to impact me. And I don't want to wait to get the bad news in a bill every year.
And I think that's where I've seen some of my support too, is the people who already realize this.
Right.
They see the fact that valuations are going up despite the levy not, and so they still realize it and they get activated a little bit, but it's still just getting the eyes wide, more and more open before they really start seeing like, okay, the entire problem is the system.
No, it absolutely is. And when we say taxation is theft here, we don't mean it just to be funny.
It's not a platitude.
Nope.
It's the reality.
Absolutely. Well, Trevor Reilly, congratulations on a race hard fought.
Thank you, Pat.
Wishing you nothing but the best, and reach out to me next week or right after the election and let me know how it goes. And
yeah, we'll do.
Then we'll go to Plan B. All right, buddy?
Sounds good. Thank you guys for having me. Really appreciate it.
Oh, and we'll be in touch. Folks, you've been listening to Candidates Corner on LPTV, a production of the Libertarian Party and Libertarian National Committee. Joe Bishop, Henchman Chairman. John Gapso, as always, has served ably on the big board. I'm your host, Pat Ford, and I think in a rather complete way tonight, we've covered literally all the bases. Over the last few months, year or so, we've offered you the opportunity to get involved with candidates from around the country through the miracle of IP addresses, whether it be remote paging, demon dialing for dollars, or even just mailing stuff out remotely, working on emails. There are ways, in addition to financial support, which we understand is a challenge now with everything going on in the world, but there are ways that we can take all that energy, which we seem to have over the last week or two, and funnel it into the prospects of, say, for example, this evening, Mr. Reilly, who could certainly use every little bit of support. One of the most impressive things that I've seen and been a witness to was just a few short months ago when it seemed like the entire libertarian firmament descended on Burnsville, Minnesota, and went in support of not only Kara, but also the support of a mayoral candidate. And people in his community really didn't know what hit them, because there are people from California knocking on their doors. There were people from Rhode Island, Massachusetts, reaching out and well, if you will, parachuting into this community. We often can't do that in person, but there's lots of ways that we can do that on behalf of our fine candidates. So, folks, please, we need to take these things personally, but let's take that energy and let's get involved and let's support all of these wonderful down ballot candidates that you'll continue to meet on LPTV. Next Friday night, we're gonna have 3 different special election assembly candidates from the great state of Pennsylvania. There are a total of 4 candidates, as it turns out, running on the ballot on one day in Pennsylvania. God bless the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania. So, folks, stay tuned. Monday night, we're going to be having, again, an evening conversation with an affiliate. So, Mondays at 9, Fridays at 9, and all the great LPTV programming during the week, including but not limited to, of course, the folks for the at-large LNC representatives who bring to life, if you will, a lot of the challenges and issues facing the Libertarian National Committee. So there's a lot that you can do and a lot to be done. And we thank you for joining us tonight. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you Monday night.